The Atlanta Chamber Players, Inc. was founded as a 501c3 nonprofit corporation in 1976. We are in our 38th season concertizing now. We have a core group of strings and winds and pianists who primarily perform with the Atlanta Symphony, and that means that our players are amazing. We have varied repertoire and instrumentation. So we're always mixing and matching as a mixed ensemble, rather than being just a piano trio or just a string quartet or even just a Baroque or early music group or just a new music group. We do it all. We will literally play Baroque and we will literally play world premieres. And then we have a very good time with all the great warhorse masterpieces in between. My title is actually Artistic Managing Director. For decades, probably 30 years, I was artistic director and coordinated all the decisions that went on in the group as to programming, instrumentation, touring. I tried to make good decisions about the publicity and how we were to be branded, if you will. About 8 years ago, I was made full-time. My board of directors, they added the managing part to my title. So I pretty much do this morning, noon, and night, whereas in the past I would hold a half-time position at Georgia State University, and before that I was at Kennesaw. And now I'm extremely lucky to be one of the few performers in the country who has a full-time salary managing and putting together the chamber music season for a group. We will contact friends and friends of friends and put it together and introduce ourselves, and then those people tell other people, and we will get contacted about performing. So it's always networking and who you know and who has heard you. Sometimes after a concert, someone will rush up and say, I'm the program director at the blah, blah, blah series, and we'd like to talk to you about having you come and play. When we played in New York and Boston 2 seasons ago as part of our 35th season, we were in touch with them and discussed it a couple of years out and discussed programming and worked that out. And that was something that we approached them about and then settled on dates. Because a majority of our colleagues are full-time Atlanta Symphony, touring is very tricky. It has to be done during off days or off weeks, and it takes a lot of juggling to get all the players available for the touring. In 2013, 7 of us went to the Central Highlands of Mexico and played at the San Miguel Chamber Music Festival there and gave 4 concerts. Wow, was that something to pull together as far as availability. I had musicians flying in from all around the country where they had been playing in other chamber music festivals or orchestra summer festivals, and we all convened again in San Miguel after rehearsing and getting everything ready when we were last all together here in May. And then we convened and put together these 4 programs, and that was very exciting to play an assortment of American chamber music and premieres for Mexico, along with Beethoven and Brahms. For about 10 years, we toured 4, 5, or 6 weeks a year. But that was in the days before our members were full-time Atlanta Symphony. And it's really worth it now to have these incredible ASO players be part of the Atlanta Chamber Players, because it means that the music making is absolutely as good as it can get. After the program and after we've had a chance to listen to the recording and double check, we very frequently will upload the live performance to our website. And then people can make a small donation, and it is only a donation, and download the live concerts. The way a commission happens with a composer is that I and probably most or all of my colleagues are just jazzed by the writing of a composer. And to be honest, lately that has happened because I've heard that composer's music live, and often with the Atlanta Symphony. We've commissioned quite a few of the so-called Atlanta School of Composers because we've gotten to know them. My colleagues are playing their music in the orchestra, and I'm in the audience listening and having a strong reaction or not. And then I simply go up to the composer and introduce myself, and it's been very gratifying that they usually recognize the Atlanta Chamber Player's name. And I'm now able to say quite a distinguished list of composers who we have already commissioned and even recorded and premiered and toured. So when I talk to them about a commission, they are really interested. Then we talk about instrumentation. We talk about the number of minutes. They want to know if there's any kind of special request. We sign a commissioning agreement. If they are working with a publisher, I sign that agreement with their publisher on their behalf. And we choose the date of delivery and premiere. In chamber music, very, very generally, the top composers will receive $1,000 or $1,250 or even $1,500 per minute of finished work. This is chamber ensemble. And a young composer or underexposed composer may write you a whole piece for $500. So we've paid between $30,000 and $500 to commission a piece of chamber music. As a pianist who has been incredibly fortunate to play hundreds and hundreds of works for piano and other instruments, I am probably most grateful for the experiences that I've had playing the chamber works of Johannes Brahms. I've gotten to play all of his chamber music works for piano. They are so incredibly well crafted, so dramatically or heartbreakingly personal. It's just a stunning privilege every time I play Brahms. He was so self-critical and destroyed, we believe, 2/3 of what he wrote. Well, that's horrible to think about, but the result is that everything we have is unbelievably fantastic. And he was a pianist, and his piano writing in the chamber music is just absolutely amazing. I think it's both. The music that we have a relationship with, then when we hear it again, it brings up those associations which probably have positive and negative emotions. But I don't think you need to have heard music before to have a very strong emotional reaction, including hatred or disgust or craziness. Music can capture ugliness and horror and war as well as things that go way beyond words, celestial, sublime, spiritual, poignancy, innermost personal thoughts. I hear new music all the time that's very successful, very powerful at evoking all kinds of emotions. And for me, if it weren't connected with spirituality and emotion, I wouldn't want to hear it, and I wouldn't want to play it. And when I'm putting together a program, I don't play any music that doesn't speak to me. It took me a few years to get to that point, but I have come around to that. I've taken should out, that I should program or I should like. If I don't like a piece, if it does not speak to me, I don't want to hear it. I sure as hell don't want to spend weeks of my life preparing it. And I would not be proud to share it. So everything that we play in the Atlanta Chamber Players is because it speaks to us, and because my name is on it as artistic director, it has to be something that I'm proud to say speaks to me personally. Rapido is one of the most exciting things I've ever been a part of in my fortunately long career with the Atlanta Chamber Players. We always played new music, and from the very beginning we would commission composers and work with them, be coached by them, rehearse with them, make changes with them once they heard the piece and we were playing it, slow things down, speed them up, change some of the techniques. It's very interesting to work with a composer, and a living composer, and it makes you realize that if we could ask Beethoven, what in the world were you trying to do? He might say, oh gosh, that stinks. Here, let's change that. But unfortunately, with those composers who are already gone, we're trying to stay true to the printed page. Through the years, we've commissioned a number of composers and now given about 125 premieres in Atlanta. In 2008, Ron Antonori of the Antonori Foundation came to me with an idea based on filmmakers who turn around and produce a new film, a short film, in a weekend. He said, why couldn't that happen in chamber music? And we devised rapido, meaning quickly, obviously. And rather than a weekend, which we thought was maybe not the most indicative of the talent of a composer, we decided 14 days would give the composer a little more time so we could get a true glimpse of what there was, talent-wise, knocking around in that creative brain. And we launched it in 2009 in the Southeast. We had no idea if anyone would take note or apply or whether we'd be overwhelmed. We did it in 9 southern states, and we had several dozen, 4 or 5 dozen applications. We went through those and picked 4 finalists. They came to Atlanta. We premiered their music live, and one winner was chosen, who we then commissioned to expand the work for chamber group. And the really fun part, and the catch, if you will, is that the composers will pre-register, and then on Monday morning of the 14-day composition period, they will find out the required instrumentation and form. So at 9 o'clock on the Monday morning, the first day, day 1, if you will, of the 14-day composition period, the composers find out the required instrumentation and form, and then they have to ready, set, go, start. And 14 days later, we have to have it in hand. It was a great success in the Southeast region, and we then decided to expand. We added partners in Boston and Chicago, and then we had 29 states. And 2 years ago, we added 2 more partners in Dallas and San Francisco, and now we're 50 states coast to coast. The exciting thing is that we have fostered the creation of almost 1,000 new short works for chamber group through the 3 cycles of Rapido. And Robert Spano came in as a national judge 2 years ago to choose the one national winner from among the finalists from the regions. And he was so excited about Rapido that he proposed that the Atlanta Symphony join and partner and commission the winner to write a piece for the Atlanta Symphony. Holy cow, that's a huge incentive for participation. Charles Zoll won the latest round of Rapido, Take 3, in 2012. And he was a 21-year-old from the University of Arizona, a senior. And Robert Spano and 2 other judges, Jennifer Higdon, Pulitzer Prize winner, and Michael Gandolfi, head of composition at New England Conservatory and the Tanglewood Institute, those 3 great musicians chose Charles Zoll as our winner. And he then expanded his winning work to 15 minutes, and it is being premiered around the country now. We gave the world premiere in Atlanta. Then next was Dallas. This past weekend it was premiered in Boston. And in January and February it'll get premiere performances in Dallas and San Francisco. And Charles is very busy right now writing a totally brand new work for full symphony orchestra, and it is going to receive 3 performances by the Atlanta Symphony in late May 2014. He's now a 22-year-old grad student at McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Deciding how we want to play a piece is one of the great opportunities, and it's a great responsibility. In the Atlanta Chamber Players, every musician has an equal say in what goes on. We do not have a conductor to make those artistic decisions for us, so every musician gets to participate and have an equal say in the artistic decisions. Sometimes there will be a difference of opinion. One of the things that happens is that we use microphones that are strung around my studio here, and we will record a passage and listen back to it. And very often it's clear when you hear it rather than being involved in the production of playing. So very often that just shows everybody that it's really better this tempo or that articulation. Sometimes when we really continue to have a split vote, we've done it different ways, different nights when we were touring. One night we may take a little slower tempo, the next night we may move it ahead a little bit. But it's one of the great joys of chamber music that you have the opportunity to be very spontaneous and flexible. Mm-hmm. And you have that opportunity to do it different ways, and you can also do it different ways without necessarily discussing it ahead of time. Once you really communicate, once you read each other, and you know what that colleague is trying to do, the way their body motion is, a brief glance, sometimes just the way they lean forward in their chair or back. You know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what their desire is. And it may be something that no one has ever tried before in rehearsal. And it's great to spread your wings and fly together to a new place. That's one of the things I most enjoy about chamber music, the spontaneity in performance, whether you've necessarily rehearsed it that way or not. Of course, there have been times when it was not something that we would be capable of broadcasting, for instance, that it had a real error in it, rather than something that was not your favorite interpretation. There was a missed entrance or a wrong note or something, a chord that was terribly out of tune. And yeah, that happens. And it's pretty exciting when it happens. And one of the things that a performer has to learn is self-forgiveness and forgiveness of your colleagues. You have to have that ability to drop a mistake and go on. Every measure is a new opportunity. I'm always telling my students when they're getting ready to perform and they're going through all the jitters and the worries, I'll remind them about the hot potato rule, that if you have a mistake, drop it as a hot potato. Woo, that's hot, and go right on, because the audience is going to forget about it quickly if you play beautifully the next phrase. The hard part is to forgive yourself and not sit there the rest of the piece or the performance and why did I do that? And I play that every other time so well, and it's very hard to drop it and go on. Something like 27 tubas in this studio and the house, because my husband is Michael Moore, who plays tuba in the Atlanta Symphony. So I'm symphony family as well.